views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when.
This is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. My special guest is former Attorney General Curtis Hill.
Hello, Patty.
Hello, welcome to my show. You were former Attorney General of Indiana. You're county prosecutor for Elkhart County.
Correct.
And now you're campaigning for the position of governor here in Indiana.
That's correct. I'm traveling all over the state, making it happen.
Where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born and raised in Elkhart, Indiana, just right on the Michigan line. And I'm the fifth child of my parents, and which made me the baby of the family.
Mm-hmm. And when you come from a large family, so five of them.
Five kids. Both my parents came from large families. We grew up in a small house on the north side of town in Elkhart. My father was a postman, a mailman, when I was born. My mother was a beautician, and my father changed jobs in the early 70s. After about 19 years with the Postal Service, he took a job as an insurance salesman, and then he was very actively involved in community events. He was president of the local NAACP branch for about 12 years.
Wow.
Involved in the Urban League. He was a member of the Elkhart Community School Board. So he was very, very engaged in not just local community affairs, but also the national scene as well.
Have you followed in his footsteps, so to speak?
Well, I think so. I think it's a different type of service. My father was engaged in service on a very personal level in civil rights, but he was very, very caring about what happens in this community. I've taken it in a different direction. My service has been more from the government standpoint. I've done volunteer work and I've done activist work to a degree, but my largest contribution has been as a servant leader in the government through my role as prosecutor for the county and my role as attorney general for the state.
So, as a prosecutor, what was your duties being a prosecutor?
Well, as prosecutor, my responsibility was to set the tone for the public safety of our community, working with the law enforcement, working with the judges and the justice system to make Elkhart County a safe environment. And my objective was to make it the safest county in the state of Indiana. We worked very hard at that. Prior to becoming the elected prosecutor, I was a part-time deputy prosecutor. So I worked in the courts for some 14 years as a deputy prosecutor. I was a specialist in child abuse cases. I was a specialist in drug prosecutions and also in homicides. Then in 2002, I ran for prosecuting attorney, won my primary by 20 percentage points, won the election by 70 with a 78% margin. At that time, the prosecuting attorney's office in Elkhart County was the largest county rather that had a part-time prosecutor's office before I took over. And so my first job was to transition the office into a full-time operation. That was a big job, and we did it in short order and were very successful in that role.
When you became a lawyer, how long did you practice? law?
I became a lawyer back in the late 80s. I think it was about 89. And I opened up a small practice, a solo practice. So I was a general practitioner. I handled family law matters, business matters, receiverships. Um, I did not do any criminal defense work, as I was also a part-time deputy prosecutor.
Oh,
I did that for about 14 years. And the existing prosecutor at the time, Mike Cosentino, was stepping down from office. And so that's when I threw my hat in the ring to run for the elected office.
why did you run for Attorney General? And when was that, dude?
Well, I had been prosecutor for 14 years, had really done, I think, an excellent job of cleaning up the criminal activity in Elkhart County. I felt I had more to offer. I felt that the state could benefit from what I was doing in Elkhart County from an accountability standpoint. I had a large network of prosecutors that were supporting me in that role, and we decided to run.
So as when you, well, you did get elected as Attorney General, what were your duties with that position?
Well, the primary function, as the name Attorney General, is the legal counsel for the state. So when the state is sued, or when the state needs to take action, or for advice and counsel for the legislature or for the executive branch of government, the Attorney General formally serves as the official attorney for the state. There's a variety of other responsibilities that the Attorney General has. Some of them are statutory, some of them are matters that are adopted. We did unclaimed property, and you'll see advertisements from time to time where people don't know that they're missing property. They can contact the Attorney General's office and secure property that's been lost that belongs to them. We do work in the Indiana Supreme Court as well as the United States Supreme Court on lawsuits, and also joining briefs of other states. We have a large consumer protection division, which protects the public against criminal behavior, fraudulent behavior, things of that nature. So there's a variety. There was a whole number of different arenas and responsibilities for the Attorney General.
How long were you Attorney General?
For 4 years, I was Attorney General from 2016, or excuse me, 2017 to 2021.
Wow. That's just about 3 years ago then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you left, what'd you do before you started running for governor?
I was engaged in consulting. I have a consulting business that works with national interests. For example, one of my clients was the Children's Health Defense, which was Bobby Kennedy's operation, and we worked in the area of vaccine mandates. We were in opposition of mandatory vaccinations for children, more informed consent, working with the federal, opposing some of the policies of the federal government that were engaged in during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I did some other private consulting, and a little bit of legal work.
You know, I had COVID 5 times.
Is that right?
The first time, I was supposed to have an operation. They wouldn't touch me until I had a COVID shot.
Well, and that's what's so unfortunate about how the pandemic played out, because there was a lot of people have lost faith in our institutions because of what happened in the pandemic. There was a lot of misinformation, a lot of misgivings. That was one of the things that I picked up on. I started to understand it while I was still Attorney General. When I left office, we got very heavily in it. I'm not anti-vaccine per se, but I'm anti-informed consent. And what we were having is this control issue of forcing people to get vaccines. And I even have to back up, because it's not really a vaccine. It was forcing people to get a treatment. when I think of vaccine, I think of something that I'm taking that's going to inoculate me from
Then you
getting
get again.
illness.
Right.
And that's not what we were given. We were giving a product that as they later started saying, well, it doesn't stop you from getting the virus. It will just lessen the severity. Well, that's not a vaccine. So
No.
that's a large part of the reason why there's so many people who are upset with how the government responded, both in the state and the federal government.
Policy.
And I get it. And so your experience of having needing to get a surgery and being met with, well, we can't give you the surgery that you need until you take the vaccine that we want you to
They were
have.
refusing me. I was in a lot of pain.
It's the attitude, Patty, it's where they say it's for your own good. And what we need to understand is that we're still free. We're still free people. And so Patty knows what's in Patty's own best interest, and that's the way it ought to work. Well, I've heard horror stories, some of them firsthand. I was on the board of directors for the Unity Project, which is a group that dealt with vaccine mandates in California. And through our travels and through podcasting, we had interviews with several people who had been injured by the vaccines. And what we were able to find is that there appears to be a far greater number of individuals who have been injured as a result of the vaccine than suffered from the actual virus itself.
What can you do as a governor? What will you do?
What do we do as governor?
What will you do to help us?
Well, my belief is that the biggest problem that we have right now is that we are dealing with the loss of objective truth, the attack on the truth. And so the first thing that we'll do is start rooting ourselves in what's true and what's not true, so that we can move our state forward. I think that a state or a country runs on the strength of the family, and our families are disrupted because we're getting caught up in even defining men and women.
Oh, yeah.
We're also witnessing the manipulation of justice, the weaponization of race, the sexualization of our children. So one of the first things that I'll do, and I mentioned this in my campaign strategy, is that on the first day of office, we'll eliminate the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and Equity. Not because I'm opposed to diversity, but I'm opposed to the weaponization of race that is reflected by putting these positions in place that are designed to focus on race issues and check the box mentality. Another thing that we're looking at, and it's amazing what you find out when you run for office. I found out that the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, where you do business all the time, Patty, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles has been selling our personal data to third parties. They made $26 million last year and have made $237 million over the past 10 or 12 years selling your personal information. Now, my guess is, Patty, that you didn't give the state of Indiana permission to distribute your personal information for a profit.
No. Oh, I hate that.
Pardon?
I hate that.
Oh, you should hate that.
And
That's one of those things. When we find that out, then we start to realize, okay, is the government working for us, or are we working for the government?
remember what happened? We the people.
We the people are in the back seat. So what I'm doing, Patty, is I'm bringing awareness to these types of situations. I've got the experience, the executive experience to take action. We don't need another political office holder who just talks a good game. We need someone who's going to do the job, do what we perform. And if you look at the folks I'm running against, there's really no indication from the people who I'm running against that they have actually done things from an executive standpoint. They may have voted a particular way. Some are not even in office. Some have never served in an office before. Some are in office and you can't point to a single bold move that they've made. I'm out there running. I've got a strong record as prosecutor, a strong record as attorney general for taking action and being decisive and being bold. And that's what we need in 2025.
We need someone with experience, and you have indeed.
Yes, absolutely.
A police force. How will you work with them?
Well, I've always been a supporter of law enforcement, working as a prosecutor, and so we'll continue to do that. One of the things that we've seen is during the pandemic, law enforcement in particular was attacked. Uh, if you recall the George Floyd incident that broke out into protests, some were peaceful protests, but most were riots. And we saw even here in Indiana, we saw riotous behavior in the city of Indianapolis, and our law enforcement officers were told to stand down by the mayor of Indianapolis and also by the governor of the state. The governor of the state claiming he was waiting for the mayor to take action. We're not going to wait to take action. We're going to unleash the law enforcement officers to do the job that they're sworn to do, which is to protect the persons and property of the state and provide them with the backing and the support that they need. We're going to make sure that they are immune from prosecution for ordinary mistakes. And that doesn't mean that they can't if they break the law, that we won't take action. But police officers make mistakes in the line of duty, and we need to know the difference between making a mistake and holding them accountable for criminal behavior. And we'll take care of that.
How can we help people who commit crimes who need help mentally?
The first step is to identify the problems and to make sure you try to have as much resources possible to give people assistance. I even hate saying that because it's kind of a gloss over answer, but that's where we have to start. We have to start with being able to understand when we have a problem.
Mm-hmm. I'm bipolar type of 2, I know some people are type 1, and they're not taking their medicines, and they are acting really erratic.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of worry about them out in the public, and with their brain chemistry not being whole, to do weird things or hurt other people, and that's what concerns me,
Well, and that's a problem too, because if someone who is mentally incapacitated goes out and hurts someone, now we have a real troubling aspect because we want to hold people accountable for their bad behavior.
Yeah.
Did they consciously know what they were doing? Were they sick at the time? It creates a real justice problem, and that's a lot of what goes on in our court systems today. Very, very difficult to assess accountability and responsibility for behavior when you have mental health put into the mix, because we typically hold people responsible for their intentional or willful acts.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're suffering from a mental illness or a defect, it brings into question whether that willful act was really willful. If you're under the care of a physician or you're under medication and you go off your medication, was it purposeful? Was it not purposeful? These are all issues that have to be sorted out in the system. We used to have county homes years and years ago, and we got away from that in favor of other types of facilities that just really haven't panned out. There's an insufficient number.
How's the economy doing? Agriculture and our main economy here in Indiana.
Well, as governor, my primary job is to stay out of the way of business and opportunity. We want to reduce the number of regulations that are out there that are prohibiting small businesses and others to prosper and grow. In particular, with agriculture, we've been following a series of farmland conferences across the state of Indiana that have focused on some of the threats to farming. There are really some big threats looming, coming from of all places, the energy sector, in particular the new Green Deal, have been focusing on electric alternatives, wind power, solar, and the competition against farming land. So we're really keeping an eye on that. We're seeing projects that are popping up that are taking out pristine farmland, as opposed to going into areas that are dilapidated that could use a shot in the arm. For example, there's a big project in Boone County. That's a project that's being directed by the state and they've identified 10,000 acres of ground in a growing populous county. And a question comes up: why not put that project in Gary, where they could use a shot in the arm, or Marion, Indiana, some of these places that have been that have really seen the bad effects of a slowed economy. So from my perspective as governor, we want to be able to work with the local communities to help them and assist them with the infrastructure to continue to grow. But we don't want to do it with a heavy hand. We don't want to do it to change who we are. We don't want to sell ourselves out like a product.
That's right.
We're Indiana. We live here for a reason. If you want to bring your business to Indiana, plan on becoming like we are. We're not going to plan on becoming you.
Help us, not them, help them. Gender bending. We sterilize the person. No one can have any kids once they've been changed. So that's sterilizing our human race. First there's abortion, now there's sterilization, inhumane way of putting someone, killing someone in the name of medicine. Let's talk about abortion, Planned Parenthood. We got one here in Fort Wayne, Planned Parenthood.
Well, abortion is interesting. Abortion is the only medical procedure that I'm aware of whose primary purpose is to kill a human being. Every other medical procedure that you can think of has a life-saving or life-affirming proposition, but not abortion.
Yeah.
So what we have to be is a culture of life. We're not against women who are pregnant, who are seeking an abortion. We're against Planned Parenthood and these organizations that celebrate the death of a child. Even if you're a person that's pro-abortion or pro-choice, you should not be celebrating the situation, celebrating the death of a child.
I thought we had laws against murder, and yet they allow abortion. There's no logic in that one. None whatsoever.
Abortion used to be considered more along the lines of murder, but what's happened since the 60s and the 70s, we've been conditioned to think that abortion was something different, was something other, and we're still facing that now. Even with states like Indiana that have banned abortion, we're still reluctant to call it murder.
We have to. It should be. It's mass killing. Really, it is.
Well, I can tell you, in 1960, the population of Black Americans in this country was about 19,000. Excuse me, 19 million. In the 50 years between Roe v. Wade and its demise a few years ago, we saw over 20 million Black babies aborted. That's more Black babies aborted in that 50-year period than Black people existed in 1960.
Something has to be done. Really. I am so pro-life. 50 years or so, I've been fighting this abortion thing.
Well, and you're going to fight it some more because a lot of folks thought that with the demise of Roe v. Wade that we would end abortion. That's not true. No. Abortion is actually, there's more abortions going on now because it released the states that are pro-abortion to do ghastly things, to allow abortions up to the time of birth. In California, it's advertising in California and other states for out-of-state people to come and have their abortions in their states. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is sad. How many generations have been killed off? Over 64 million. That's the size of the country itself.
Yes.
And we're going to find out for sure with the hard way, like China did, when they were killing baby girls more than the boys. Now they're looking to bring more babies in because hardly any girls left for the men, the boys. We're going
That's
to do that here. We're going to find out the hard way, kids. We have to really start. That's what I'm for.
Well, what we have to do, we need a holistic approach. We need to save our children. We also need to teach our youngsters the importance of marriage and family,
I,
and staying together. One of the bigger problems that we have, aside from the divorce rate,
uh,
is the number of the divorce rate's bad enough, but the number of young people who don't see marriage as a positive in their future, it's growing. And the thing that keeps us together as families is that bind between the husband and wife, mother and father. That's a very, very important
the
relationship.
Lord himself.
And if we get to the point where we no longer honor marriage and we no longer honor the family unit, it gets very, very difficult to keep our family value together. That erodes our neighborhoods, our communities, and ultimately our country.
We need God more now than ever for you. This world is, we need God more than ever right now.
Mm.
And here's Mother Mary holding her baby, Jesus. That's what I see. A complete family.
Yes.
What would you like to say to my audience? We have a couple more minutes left to share with
Well, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. I'd like your audience to go check us out at curtishill.com. It's a very important political race that we have going up. Ours is a grassroots campaign, which means that we're not, one of my opponents put $5 million of his own money into the campaign and has plenty more to spend. And we don't think that you should buy an election. We think that Hoosiers are ready for proven conservative leadership based upon what we've done in the past to demonstrate what we'll do in the future. And we're willing to put our record up against anybody who's out there. So go to curtishill.com, check us out, check out my history as Attorney General, my record as Attorney General. Check out when we stood up against Governor Holcomb and his mask mandate. Check out when we opposed the BMV and their creation of a third gender, the gender X, when they were putting that on classes, and put a stop to that. Look at what we'll do in the future with regard to the BMV, and they're selling your personal information. And even just this week we took a shot at the health department. The state health department decided that they weren't going to release any more terminated pregnancy reports, which is the only way in which we can verify that the organizations or groups that are providing abortions in a state that doesn't provide for abortions is following the law. The health department doesn't want to follow the law, and we put out a message to oppose that. So there's a real battle going on in the state of Indiana. Just because we are considered a red state, that we're considered a conservative state, doesn't mean that everybody is operating with a clear mind on justice and faith.
Well, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Thank you.
Thank you.
Curtis Hill. Thank you for coming on to my show. So
We were planning this a long time, so I'm glad we finally got it done.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until